Entrepreneur or small business owner? Which one are you? And which one are you talking to? I have been dying to bring you this conversation and investigate what is in a name. Does it even matter what we call ourselves? Does it matter what we call our clients? In this episode, we're going to explore why entrepreneur and small business owner might feel a little different, what they actually mean, and we'll also identify together which one you might be while giving you permission to reject both if you so choose. So let's do this. Welcome to Small Business Casual. You're in the right place if you've got an entrepreneurial mindset and you want to grow a business that's successful, profitable, and thriving, but you don't want it to get in the way of your time with family and friends. I'm Emily Aborn, and I'm here to guide you through with grounded marketing, practical business ownership strategies, and more as we design a business that works for you. I was filling out a form the other day and, one of those tell me about your business kind of questionnaires, and it asked me to select my role in the business. So the options were entrepreneur, small business owner, freelancer, self-employed, and then a couple of other roles that were related to being an employee. And I just kind of stared at it and I was like, aren't those all just the exact same thing? Which box am I supposed to choose? So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go through this like it's an SAT, right? I'm going to eliminate the choices I don't want. So I cross out the word entrepreneur. I'm like, I don't really love that choice for me. It feels a little bit like, I'd be like a bro in a hoodie over here talking about scaling to 7 figures and disrupting industries. Although funny enough, I have wanted to be a business owner since I was a little kid, and I have always considered myself very entrepreneurial in the workplace. No matter what job I get myself into, I've always kind of taken that ownership lens. It's true, I am an entrepreneur. I don't have a hoodie, and I'm not always talking about scaling, but I don't necessarily use that word as much, I guess. And then I look at the word freelancer and I'm like, well, sort of, but am I really free? Am I really free? No. Self-employed, yes, but that sounds like also maybe I don't have a job. I don't know. So I went with small business owner. I like small business owner better. But then I thought to myself, well, is small, why are we including the word small? Why not just say business owner, which I do in my podcast? So do I need to be including that word? All kinds of questions ensued from here. And this, folks, is why Emily should never be allowed to fill out a simple questionnaire online. It couldn't cause her a day of existential crisis. But let's put my own little checkbox journey aside here. Let's talk about you. What are you? What do you choose for yourself when referring to what you do and also to your clients? And does that even matter? Welcome back to Small Business Casual. If this is your first time joining us, hello, I'm Emily, as you heard in the introduction, and I am a small business copywriter. And this month we're having some of the most fun that I could ever possibly have. We're getting word nerdy, which is like a dream come true for me. And this week we're in the word nerderyisms. We're going to be tackling a question I actually get asked a lot. What is the difference between an entrepreneur and a small business owner as it relates to my copy? Which one should I say that I am? So it's actually a question I've been sitting with for a really, really long time and wanting to tackle with you. It's been on my mind. So the day is finally here. We are going to explore what the labels actually mean, who gets to decide what they mean, why entrepreneur might feel icky to some people and empowering to other people. Why small business owner might feel limiting to some people and really grounding to other people. And then what's freelancing got to do with it, right? And hopefully we'll kind of emerge in how to choose what to call yourself, or maybe you reject the labels entirely. So to kick us off, I actually want to start by reading you a little blurb of an email that my friend Lindsay Dreyer sent way back in December about small business versus entrepreneur versus, she speaks specifically to real estate agents. So here we go. She says this: I live in a town that feels a little like a Hallmark Christmas movie. Historic buildings, every storefront decked out in pine garland and twinkle lights, no chain stores, no strip malls, small, locally owned shops that remember your name. It's the kind of place where community means something. So every year on Small Business Saturday, I bundle up, grab a latte at Aesop's Tables, yes, that's the name of the coffee shop, and I walk downtown to do my holiday shopping. This year, I got to thinking, why don't we talk about real estate agents like this? I don't think we've ever really seen real real estate agents be referred to as small business owners. That is a mistake because you are one. You run your own thing. You serve real people. You power your local economy. You invest in your community, not just financially, but emotionally, energetically, and personally. Now, Lindsay sent this email at the perfect time because I was already kind of thinking about that slight nuance of referring to ourselves as small business owners versus entrepreneurs versus freelancers versus self-employed. Aren't they all just kind of the same thing, right? So let's unpack it a little bit. Let's look at the actual definitions, and then we'll get into the cultural ones and maybe sometimes the stereotypes that go along with it. So we'll start with entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is defined as somebody who organizes and operates a business, taking on financial risk to do so. Small business owner is defined as someone who owns and operates a business with a small number of employees, typically under 50 to 500, depending on industry. By definition, they're basically the same thing, although you notice entrepreneur, it doesn't necessarily say owns the business, which I find a little bit odd, but they do feel a tiny bit different to me. So I kind of got curious on what exactly is happening here. And I think there is some stereotypes and some culture wrapped into these words. So let's talk about how we've seen entrepreneur take a life of its own over, let's say, the past kind of like 10, 15 years. So culturally, the stereotypical entrepreneur has kind of looked like a growth-obsessed, scale-focused, move fast, fail fast, break things, grow, get results, right? They're like very innovative and disruptive and changing the world. And they often have big risks, big vision, big ambition. Maybe they're building to sell or to exit in some way. So a lot of the language around that might come off as, I'm building an empire, or I'm scaling to 7 figures, or I'm disrupting the industry, or creating the new norm. I used to say that, hustle harder. And I also think we associate it with a lot of kind of like tech startups or people with multiple revenue streams, or just folks who prioritize rapid growth, hiring quickly, scaling, that kind of thing. Like it has a little bit of the vibe of, especially when, like, let's say entrepreneur is used in somebody's LinkedIn bio, but it doesn't actually describe what they do as an entrepreneur. It has kind of like the rise and grind, hustle culture, Gary Vee, Silicon Valley, Shark Tank vibe or energy. Okay. And it can feel a little bit like bro-y, got the fake it till you make it, that kind of thing. It is also a little tiny bit vague as to what they actually do. Then we bring in that stereotypical small business owner, right? We got kind of the sustainability focused, community oriented, lifestyle oriented, building something I'm proud of that really supports, my family and my community, solving a problem, slower, steadier growth, building to keep doing what they're doing, not necessarily sell. And you'll see a little bit of the language shift. So a lot of people will say, I run a small business, or I am self-employed. And they'll bring in a lot of words like craft, quality, community, service, collaboration, those kind of words. And I don't think that this is necessarily true, that there is a difference in business types, but I think stereotypically the business types tend to be, brick and mortar shops, local businesses, consultants, right? Service providers, coaches, things like that. So it's very like Main Street, not Wall Street, Chamber of Commerce, not venture capital, more like grounded, rooted, sustainable long-term growth. Now, I will say, I can see how people might say that word small makes them feel like a little bit diminished or dismissed, like, it's not a real business, it's a small business. And that maybe also makes you feel like it's less impressive or less ambitious. I disagree. I kind of think the small is more like cozy, and personal and high touch, right? I also really like that. I think small business really is unifying to me. It's very much like, small businesses genuinely are the backbone of this country's economy. So I really find it like a solidarity thing. Okay. So let's also dive into, it's more like together than entrepreneur, which is like a little bit more separate. And I'm totally, I mean, these perceptions are mine, and also stereotypes, and they do not apply for everyone. And that's kind of like part of the point of today. So let's also dive into freelancer, self-employed, and then just like business owner. So freelancer, somebody who sells skills, services to multiple projects on a project by project basis without long-term commitment to any single employer. I mean, like technically that's me. Although, you know, I have a few retainer clients, but I do a lot of quote unquote freelancing. It does imply that you are working for others. You're not like necessarily executing your own vision. You're not building something necessarily of your own. And I think it does have like that little bit of a transitional kind of connotation. Like it's sort of like a stepping stone to something else, right? You may be, but that's not even real, because you may be freelancing intentionally and successfully, and that may be your business, that may be your entire career. But I think sometimes the baggage of it is that it's like, well, that sounds like a little temporary or unstable or not a quote unquote real business, right? Okay, let's look at self-employed. Super fascinating. Self-employed, working for yourself rather than employer. Earning income directly from your own work rather than a salary. I mean, this is like the most neutral of all of them. It's more of like a tax or legal designation, I think, than an identity, right? I mean, I often write this on like my form at the doctor, for example. But self-employed really is describing how you work, not what you do or why you do it. It feels clinical and administrative, hence why I put it on my doctor forms. It's not very like as aspirational or inspiring, but it's also just really honest and unpretentious. So lastly, let's look at business owner. That is somebody who owns and operates a business regardless of size, regardless of industry or revenue. It's kind of like a one size fits all, carries a lot of weight, I think, and it implies intentionality. Like you built it, you own it. It exists beyond just you showing up and doing the work. And there's very little baggage with this one. It's probably like the most clean, straightforward label of the bunch. No hustle culture baggage, no small qualifier baggage, no confusion, is this a real job for them or like an in-between, right? So here's the thing though. It is all a spectrum. Like this is not binary, and none of these stereotypes are actually true. But you may take them in and kind of say, you know what, I have that stereotype or that attachment to that word as well. And so I'm going to choose to describe myself in a different way. But the reality is, the truth is, you can be a small, quote unquote, small business owner and you can make $1 million a year. You can be a quote unquote entrepreneur and you can only make $30,000 a year. You could identify as both. You can identify as neither. You can reject all of these labels entirely 100%. I think that the label we choose says more about our values and our vision than our revenue. They also are maybe a little bit of a signal or an invitation to the people that we want to speak to and work with. Now, that's why I personally use the term small business owner. Like I said, it's to me very cozy and high touch. It feels very personal and hands-on. And I don't know if it's going to just be me forever. Like I would love to have kind of like a little crew over here, but I do know that I want to work with I always want to work with long game minded businesses who know that growth does not take place overnight. I want people who are willing to pause, to get clarity, and to really commit to putting into the work to get where they want to go. The people I'm looking to attract place consistency over hustle, and they're celebrating those long-term successes versus just quick wins. They're building really sustainable businesses. They value that craft and that quality, and they want businesses that support their life, not consume their life, right? So often the people I work with also, they are solopreneurs. That's another label we could choose. Or they have very, very small teams at the largest. But I am not speaking to people seeking VC funding. I am not speaking to people who are just looking to massively explode their business and then sell it. I'm not looking for industry disruptors necessarily. I'm not looking for hustle culture enthusiasts. So you get to choose for yourself who you are for and who you are not. And you may select one of these labels accordingly. So it's all about like what is right for you. And I want to help you kind of like determine what you might choose based on who you're talking to and how you might want to describe yourself. So think about the word entrepreneur. Just think about it for one little minute here. It has become, in my mind, over the past 10, 15 years, it has become a smidge synonymous with this kind of like rise and grind. I open businesses and I close businesses real fast. I sacrifice everything for my business. I sleep when I'm dead. It's kind of got like Gary Vee yelling at me to work harder vibes. And I'm sometimes like, it can also fall into the trap of being used by people who don't have viable businesses yet, or they don't have a business yet, but they're still calling themselves entrepreneurs because they have an idea, which is totally fine, right? Sometimes I think people use it to sound more advanced than they are. Sometimes, like I said, I think people just start and stop businesses faster than I throw away tea bags, and then they call themselves entrepreneurs. And I think also sometimes people use it when they're building more of like a personal brand, and it's like very, very encompassing, but it's not necessarily a one singular focused business, which on the flip side, some people cannot stand being called a small business owner because they might think that small is like even having that word in front of business owner, maybe it feels not big enough or not important enough or diminishing or not ambitious, right? Maybe it sounds less impressive or catchy or too ordinary or too Chamber of Commerce. So here's the thing. For some people, when you say the word entrepreneur, they're going to lean in. For other people, when you say the word entrepreneur, they're going to roll their eyes. For some, when you say I own a small business, they will politely nod. And for others, when you say a small business, people will be like, ooh, me too. Go on, right? So entrepreneur does have this kind of like big picture visionary leader mentality where I do think that a lot of people think small business is just kind of like ordinary. Like there are tons of small businesses. And so maybe to them, it doesn't sound like you're very ambitious or creative or innovative, not a real entrepreneur, right? None of these things are true. And this is why, again, it's like, how do you actually choose for yourself and when you're speaking to your clients? So here's what I want to give you. Ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself these 5 questions. Number 1, what are you building and for whom? Are you working on something that you would ideally eventually like to sell or maybe franchise, right? That kind of has like that entrepreneur energy. Before focusing solely on copywriting, which is like one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, I had a business called She Built This. And my goal really was to I just wanted to grow it so big. And I could see other people like taking over branches and, growing it in other places and teaching people how to do it for themselves. It was very entrepreneur energy. So that's question number 1. What are you building and for whom? Are you working on an asset that you plan to sell? Are you building just a comfortable life that you want to live? That might have more of that small business owner energy, maybe some of that more freelance energy, self-employed. What about your clients? Let's talk about them. What are they building? And what are their goals? Okay. How long have they been doing this? What does it look like for them to be part of the community? A lot of the people I work with are super, super connected to their community and their family and their life, and they take both their work and their life very, very seriously. So that's another question for you. Question number 2, what do you and your clients value most? Do you value growth, scaling, profit? that kind of has like that entrepreneur vibe. Do you value more sustainability, craft, slow growth, long-term vision? That kind of has a little bit more of that small business owner energy. And then question number 3, how do you want to be perceived? Do you want to be perceived as like a little mysterious, maybe innovative, ambitious, disruptive, thought leader, right? Like that has a little bit more of that entrepreneur feel to it. Or are you kind of like, nope, I'm grounded, I'm reliable, I'm focused on community, on personal growth, on like a high touch for my clients that has like a little bit more of that small business owner energy. Question number 4, what do you call yourself when you introduce yourself? A lot of people do have that. And also, what do your clients call themselves when they introduce themselves? Are they saying the word, I'm an entrepreneur? Are they saying I'm a small business owner? Are they putting the role first? I'm a freelancer. I'm a self-employed person, right? Or are they putting the work that they actually do first? I'm a copywriter. I'm an interior designer. I'm a web designer. So that's also important to look at, because that will give you a lot of information about how you want to address and refer to them. Number 5, do I like any of these labels? Do you even want to use any of these labels? If both of them feel wrong, if all of them feel wrong, you don't have to use any of them. I mean, you do on your doctor form, you probably have to put down something, but you can also make up your own, or you can just call yourself what you are: a website designer, a copywriter, a brand dragon slayer. Maybe don't use that last one, but you can reject any and all labels. You do not have to identify as either, except maybe, like I said, when filling in your doctor form and filing your taxes. But there are also alternatives that you might like even more. There's business owner, where you just don't include the small part. You got founder, you got solopreneur, you got freelancer, you got self-employed. You get to decide what to call yourself. Nobody else does. And the entire point, after I kind of like investigated both of these terms, the label matters far less than how you actually feel about it. And I would also say the values behind your business. So that question kind of brought me full circle. And I wanted to take you there with me, of course, and really dive into instead of focusing on these labels that we are choosing for ourselves, what if we kind of look at what our values are? What if we say, you know what, I am really, and even using language that focuses on those values. You hear me do that in the intro of this podcast. I really want to share with you the kind of business that I am striving to build. I'm building one that is sustainable and thriving and long-term and lets me live my life, right? In addition to working. I want to be able to fill my life with family and the people that I absolutely love most and have the time of my life working on my clients' projects. So that's kind of like what I'm putting into the world. And I think getting clear on that really can help you to guide how you want to show up, how you want to share and talk about this with your clients, with your friends, at networking events, with family, and then really put some thought into like how you want to kind of engage with the people that you're speaking to. And I think that comes from their language. That comes from the language that they're choosing to use. So I will often echo back when I am speaking to somebody, if they refer to themselves as a business owner or a entrepreneur, I will often reflect back, oh, me too, right? So I'm very much like, I could be any of those, but I love to just kind of like go straight to like, what do I actually do in the work and what are the values that I'm working to build in my life? After hearing all this, give it a think. This was a short one for a reason. I want you to have time to think. No, just kidding. Think about the labels that you might use for yourself, the labels you might like that might just really be a turnoff for you, and get a little curious about them. Ask yourself why you call yourself what you do when you introduce your work. Would it feel better to do it a different way? Like, does the label that you're using feel right and true for you? Or does it feel like you're kind of like, well, I always say that, but I don't really feel that way? Does it feel good for you? And maybe you ask yourself, if you could invent your own label, What would that be like? What would that be like? Now, you don't have to share that publicly, okay? But it's worth knowing for yourself. Like, it really does help to ground you in the work that you're doing, because the clearer you can be on what you are building and why, the easier everything else gets from there. Okay, next week in the Word Nerd Fun, we are diving into something I think about all the time. And I recently got asked this by a client, and I was just floored in the question. So the question was, how do we really show that we are trustworthy in our business besides just saying we are trustworthy in our business? So we're going to dive into what really builds trust in businesses. And are there words we can choose that build that trust? Not just what we think builds trust, but what actually builds trust. So we're going to get into that next week, and I will chat with you then, my fellow small business owner, entrepreneur, freelancer, self-employed person, and friend. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of Small Business Casual. If you love the show, make sure to rate, review, and share it with a frazzled business owner that you care about. Because this shouldn't feel like a roller coaster ride, more like a scenic train ride with snacks. Don't forget those snacks.